Let's get ready to rumble!
Alright, let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
Apparently Tony Bellew has a price if he was to make a return to the ring. The price wasn't disclosed in the article I saw, but he said he'd be open to fighting Jake Paul. Not as an exhibition. He doesn't want to go the same route as Mike Tyson, Roy Jones and Floyd with these exhibitions. He said the fight has to mean something, so they'd both have to get licensed as professionals, and said that he and plenty of people would like to see him shut Jake Paul up. Now, he hasn't boxed since 2018, Tony. I'm not sure if anyone would pay to see Tony do that, and we're talking about a former world champion. I don't think nobody expects Jake Paul to beat the likes of Tony Bellew, even a Tony Bellew who's been out the ring for 4 years. I don't think people expect him to beat that guy. But the guy that we're talking about, who he's ranked ahead of on BoxRec, who's got a 19-1 record and beat Caleb Plant as an amateur, Pina. I think fights like that would intrigue the public. But yeah, if he was to fight Bellew on DAZN, it would be somewhat an event. Imagine if Jake Paul pulled it off. News in brief, Lyndon Arthur is added to the Wasserman card in Newcastle. That's the undercard of Troy Williamson versus pretty boy Josh Kelly. Dion Juma has announced that he has been forced to retire from professional boxing after suffering a detached retina for the second time. Health comes first. He described boxing as his best friend but greatest adversary. He knew this day would come, but he just hoped it wouldn't be so soon. He was set to take on Mikael Lawal for the British title in Alexander Palace, November the 27th. And it's over. Sad. You have to feel for the man. They have, however, found a replacement, and that will be David Jameson from Scotland, who Lawal previously outpointed in a semi-final of an Ultimate Boxer tournament in 2019. Lawal went on to win the tournament. Liam Williams returns to the ring. He lost to Chris Eubank in February, getting dropped numerous times and eventually losing on points. He takes on France's Nizar Trimech at the York Hall, November the 25th. Richard RHIAKPORE, he takes on KRYSZTOF GLOWACKI, former WBO cruiserweight champion. He took on Lawrence Okolie early last year, I believe for the vacant WBO title, and got smashed to pieces in 6 rounds. He's had one return fight, that was April this year. He won that by stoppage. It's understood that Boxer XX are closing in on a deal, and it should take place 21st of January 2023 in the UK. Apparently, neither Eubank Jr. or Liam Smith have signed their contracts yet, and that's supposed to be the co-main event. GLOWACKI, he's getting on a little now. His best years have gone, so expect RHIAKPORE to win this one in style. Ben Shalom confirmed that he's received the offer from Matchroom, a 6-figure offer, for Natasha Jonas to take on Terry Harper for the undisputed super welterweight title. Now, Ben Shalom is saying it's not a huge offer. It's a decent offer, but it's not a huge offer. Natasha Jonas says, she's earning 6 figures already. Now we know Natasha and Joe Gallagher have beef with Eddie, and it looks like Ben Shalom, he's definitely embroiled in a standoff with Matchroom now. He's saying that Natasha's earning well. She doesn't need to take this fight, but if she wants to fight Terry Harper, who she drew against in what was a close fight for Terry Harper's 2 straps on Matchroom a couple of years ago, that he'll make a counter bid. He seems determined to keep the fight on Sky. And it looks like, there's some gamesmanship going on. I think Eddie knew that Ben Shalom wasn't going to roll over and say, yeah, okay, you go over to DAZN now, Tasha. No. Now, if it was Katie Taylor or Jessica McCaskill, maybe Sky would sacrifice and take the gamble, let Tasha fight on DAZN and try and get them straps. And it would be a pity not to get a rematch over some network promotional beef. We don't need that in the UK right now. We don't need that. I mean, it's just weird how stuff works. We have Ryder versus Parker, which is Matchroom versus Queensbury. That's on BT. It's no problem. And we know Eddie and Frank are not the best of buds, but Eddie seems to have got a relationship going with George Warren, and they've got this fight together. So when it looks like that standoff is patched up, now we've got this Matchroom Sky Boxer XX shit now. Come on, man. Let's get it resolved. So you can read what Lawrence Okolie's saying here. He's saying to his enemies, "We are at war!" Like Sister Soldier in and out the ring. He's going to spend every penny on legal battles and against any organisation, agency and person who's ever got in his way. He's going to bring attention to all the wrongdoings of these fools who mistreat and use boxers. Don't they know fighters talk? Now, how long's Bob Arum been in the game? Before I was born, so that's over 50 years. Let's say you was in your prime like Okolie, 29 years of age, and you got embroiled in a beef with Bob Arum in the 60s. A legal situation that kept you out of the ring. This legal situation could keep you out of the ring for a year, 2, 3, 4 years, into the early 70s, and your career would probably be finished. Bob Arum's still promoting today. The long game in a legal situation normally plays into the promoter's hands, even if you eventually win the legal battle. Your career at the top level has a limited time frame compared to a promoter's. So why would Lawrence Okolie, with only one fight left on his Matchroom contract, no matter how contentious his relationship with Eddie is right now, why would he be prepared to go through all that? Well, maybe there's some stuff that someone over that side of the street has done that Lawrence has no option but do this. But we don't know. I don't know. On the Matchroom channel, Eddie addressed the situation to a degree. He seemed to be hoping they could come to an amicable resolution on this fight, or it goes to court. His defense was Lawrence Okolie was not a natural draw in the ring. They let him headline the O2 against Isaac Chamberlain. That didn't go down very well. Sadly, one of the hug fests of a fight that Lawrence has had. He was also paid very handsomely because of his relationship with Anthony Joshua and 258 management. When Joshua fought in stadium fights defending his titles against the likes of Carlos Takam, when Joshua fought at Wembley Stadium against Povetkin, Okolie took on Matty Haskin. That fight came under tremendous criticism. Another hugfest. And he was also on the undercard of Joshua versus Usyk at White Hart Lane last year when he took on Dylan Prasovich. They paid him extremely well considering that the KRYSZTOF GLOWACKI fight for the WBO title fell through and Prasovich was a substitute. So while Okolie has earned everything in the ring on his own merit with his fists, we can't overlook that he signed to the hottest promotional outfit in the UK at the time, with the biggest draw perhaps in the history of British boxing, which no doubt gave him an advantage. Now, he shouldn't be forever grateful for that because this is an ever-moving process. Now, even if you're an AJ or Hearn hater, where in the United Kingdom could he have got a better start to his career? He debuted in 2017. He wasn't like a blue chip prospect from out of amateurs. Joshua Buatsi had more of a buzz in that 2016 Olympics. Buatsi, he's still there. He hasn't had no issues, but that could change. That could change. You see, the likes of Natasha Jonas are talking about, since they've left Matchroom, they're getting more attention on Sky. And Okolie might find the same thing too. But why is that? They have less fighters on their roster. And the argument could be made that maybe Matchroom are taking on too much of a workload. They've got fighters in Australia, Mexico, America, Britain, Spain, and they've got to keep them all happy. Now, Ben Shalom claims he hasn't made an illegal approach for Okolie, but when Eddie Hearn exposed that Sky had been talking to Okolie, I didn't hear Adam Smith or Ben Shalom saying we're going to file a lawsuit for that, because Eddie more than likely got his intel from a credible source. And it is what it is. We know Ben Shalom has been talking about he's confident of signing Dalton Smith, and Smith is still in a Matchroom contract. If Sky do sign Lawrence Okolie, they better get him up to heavyweight quickly. You know, even if he ties up all the belts, which, you know, is very unlikely with all the politics and no WBSS tournament, which enabled Alexander Usyk to do that. There's no money in the cruiserweight division. There's no money. There's no money there. There's no pay-per-view fights for Sky with Lawrence Okolie in the cruiserweight division. There isn't. And they've been trying to buy up the whole of the Matchroom roster and duplicate what Eddie done on Sky with Matchroom. And it hasn't come to fruition yet. The only pay-per-view fight of any note that I remember was Kell Brook versus Amir Khan. Have they followed up since? So there's 8 fighters here. Joseph Parker, did he have a Matchroom contract or was he a free agent? Probably a free agent, but he fought a lot of times on Matchroom cards. Chris Congo, he fought on a lot of Matchroom cards on the strength of his relationship with Dillian. Probably a free agent. Florian Marco, I believe, was signed. Liam Smith, I believe, was signed. Natasha Jonas, I believe, was signed. Savannah, I believe, was signed. Richard RHIAKPORE, probably same deal that Chris Congo had. Huey Fury was signed. Are any of these yet near to being a pay-per-view draw? Liam Smith, he fights Eubank next. He's the B-side in that. It's a good fight though. And in all truth, in all fairness, we have to give all 8 of these former Matchroom fighters, whether they were signed or not, we have to give them to at least 2023. Because it's only 2021 since the split. 2023, 2024 to see what attractions they can become. But all this talk of Matchroom have took over the zone, they've got to produce heavyweights. Right now in the UK, for you to be on top, you've got to produce heavyweights. That's how Frank has made such great strides at closing the gap on Eddie with Tyson Fury. So let's say Ben Shalom did make an approach to Lawrence Okolie. I don't know if he did, and neither do you. Let's speculate that he did. And Okolie saw these figures and his head has been turned ever since. He wants to get out of this Matchroom situation. It would be interesting what figures they quoted for what fights. Because if they're going to pay him a whole lot of money to stay at Cruiser, you're literally throwing money down the drain. Alexander Usyk had to beg Tony Bellew to come out of retirement for his final fight at Cruiser because there was just no money in no other fights at 200 pounds. Now, Cody said something about being a freeweight champion, so I'm assuming he wants to fight at Bridgerweight, but he's probably going to go heavy first, see what he could conquer there, and maybe move down to Bridger at a later stage. But regardless, I've always supported Cody's career, and I still do. But I want to see him get back in the ring and get his career back on track. I don't want to see him sidelined until 2024, 25, and his best years may be gone by that time. I don't want to see that for him. So it looks like this fight was destined to happen. The WBC ordered Teofimo Lopez and Sandor Martin to fight an eliminator for the currently vacant 140-pound title, which is going to be contested by Jose Sabeda and Regis Prograis. Now, from what I'm reading here on Boxing Scene, Teofimo Lopez was critiquing Sandor Martin for pricing himself out. So, Top Rank, we're going to go ahead with the in-house fight between Lopez and Pedraza. Pedraza is ill, pulled out, and on 3 weeks' notice, Sandor Martin has took the fight. Probably too good an opportunity to miss. And Eddie Hearn probably said, look, go in there and do what you got to do. Maybe Eddie is making up the rest of his purse that they initially wasn't happy with. Now, Eddie needs this one to even up the score with Top Rank. Top Rank have been giving Matchroom a bit of a beating when they've been matched together, but at least the two promotional outfits are working together. And it all takes place the 10th of December at Madison Square Garden, New York. Lopez cannot sleep on Sandor Martin. Like I said, forget the majority decision verdict against Mikey Garcia. He won the fight convincingly. That was politics because Mikey was the bigger name and it was an upset. Sandor, not much of a puncher, but he is a southpaw and a tricky southpaw. Lopez has a slight height advantage, half an inch or so. They haven't got Sandor Martin's reach registered, and Lopez has a 68-inch reach. Only 13 KOs in 42 fights for Martin, but 13 KOs out of 18 fights for Lopez. We know who has the power advantage, and I don't want to break down the fight to who has the most power, but I feel Lopez's power is explosive, and he can box a little bit. Should give him the edge. But don't sleep on Sandor Martin. This is a really good fight. Unless Lopez makes easy work of it and rips up the form book and shows that Sandor perhaps caught Mikey at the right time at the tail end of his career. So Tank will have a warm-up in January. Catch weight limit 136 because neither of them have any official belts. Both Ryan and Tank have been on social media saying the fight will be in Las Vegas. We, the boxing fans, are excited, but in the back of our minds, not too excited because we're prepared to get let down, which is a shame that we're at this stage here. It's going to be a brilliant build-up. Questions? Are they going to split it between the two networks, or will Showtime be hosting it solely? And will it be the catalyst where fights like Crawford and Spence get made and the inactivity from these PBC fighters stop and we see them in some meaningful fights? Forever the hopeless optimist, the boxing fan. This is a pivotal negotiation period for American boxing after the Crawford-Spence debacle. There's a lot riding on this, not just for American boxing, but world boxing. Let's hope that Showtime, PBC, Golden Boy, DAZN don't screw this one up. Ball's in your court. So Anthony Yarde weighed in at 179.2. Stefani KOYKOV weighed in at 176. Looking at Stefani, he is smaller than Anthony Yarde, but had extremely powerful thighs, and he was in shape. The upper body was in shape. His body language looks all good. 12 knockouts in 14 wins, 1 stoppage loss on the resume. That was to Rene Malik, who currently has a losing record of 3 wins, 10 losses and 1 draw. So that might be an indicator that the record is deceptive. And like I said before, most of KOYKOV's wins have been against fighters with losing records. But critique. There's not much film on him, which Anthony Yarde pointed out. And with 12 knockouts in 15 fights, the one thing he might be able to do, just by looking at the statistics, is punch. I actually found film of a few of his fights. I saw the one that he lost against Malik. Malik was a lot smaller. KOYKOV was not interested in defense at all. Not one single bit. Not interested. So he's winging these big rights and these big bar room punches at my guy. My guy countered him and wobbled him all over the place and finished him off with a left hook in the second. You know, KOYKOV was leading with these big body shots. Like, that's just crazy. They're getting countered with uppercuts. He didn't care. So Yarde would have to be very sloppy to lose a fight like this. He'd have to be his most sloppiest. His technique is just too good, you would think. Malik, who stopped him, currently has a record of 3 wins, 10 losses and 1 draw. A Czech Republic fighter. But these fights can be tricky because Yarde is expected to breeze through this guy, and he should do. Yarde has a good right uppercut, although he's been inactive. My memory serves me from the early fights, he has a very good right uppercut, and this guy will be only too willing to oblige by coming in recklessly and leaving himself open for Yarde's very handy selection of shots. So that's all I got. Yarde should win this in 2 or 3. Should win this in 2 or 3. No longer than 3. Unless his opponent, who's a puncher, has that day when the puncher's chance comes up big. But as for this being a competitive fight, no chance. No chance at all. Would Stanionis be able to call his mandatory in before Keith Thurman? I guess so. I don't think Richard Schaefer would have Keith Thurman going in ahead of Stanionis. Errol could always drop the WBC belt, and Thurman could fight for the vacant strap. In terms of familiarity, I prefer to see the Thurman fight. The Stanionis fight might be harder right now, though, for Spence. Because Keith, when's the last time Keith looked impressive in anything called a boxing match? Man, 147 used to be hot, had so much potential, and I wouldn't exactly call it a shit show right now. But in the words of Milk D,
I don't care.